Hey, class, welcome back. Today we are still talking about the Great Depression, and we're talking about the Bonus Army today. What was the Bonus Army? Well, it was a group of World War One veterans that they had been promised pay that was about 25 years after World War One. They're supposed to get their pay. Well, it's the Great Depression. Nobody had any money, so they marched on Washington trying to get Congress to overturn it where they could get their money. And it's about 20,000 World War One veterans that did this. And that's what we're talking about today, about what happened, what Hoover did, and everything that went along with it. It was a group of World War One veterans who marched to Washington, D.C. in an effort to get their bonus pay. All right. They were led by this man right here, Walter Waters. All right. And this march and the government's reaction was a major event that occurred during the Great Depression, and it was a major event that occurred, and it was a bad stain on something bad for Hoover that happened. The Because how he handled this situation, it did not gain him any voters, which is why Franklin D. Roosevelt was the one that ended up winning the election in 1932 or 1933.
What was the Bonus Army? The Bonus Army was a group of World War I veterans who marched to Washington, D.C. in an effort to get their bonus pay. This march and the government's reaction was a major event that occurred during the Great Depression. The veterans were led by Walter Waters.
All right, so what did they want? After World War One, Congress Congress voted to give these veteran soldiers who fought in the war a bonus. They'd be paid $1.25 for each day they served overseas and $1 for each day they served in the United States. But the money wasn't supposed to be paid out until 1945. And since War One ended in 1918, that's a long time to wait. That's 27 years to wait. So the Great Depression began. A lot of veterans, they were out of work. They wanted to get their bonus pay to help pay for food and shelter while they looked for work. And it was just $1.25, $1.25 is how much they were per day for being overseas, and $1 for each day they served in the United States.
What did they want? After World War I, the U.S. Congress voted to give veteran soldiers who fought in the war a bonus. They would be paid $1.25 for each day they served overseas and $1 for each day they served in the United States. However, this money would not be paid until 1945. Since World War I ended in 1918, this was a long time to wait. When the Great Depression began, many veterans were out of work. They wanted to get their bonus pay early to help pay for food and shelter while they looked for jobs.
All right, so in 1932, the veterans organized a march on Washington, where they wanted to demand early payment of the bonus pay. Around 15,000 veterans converged on the Capitol. I said 15,000 to 15,000, 20,000, but it's about 15,000. They came from all over the country and they asked Congress, hey, will you please pass a bill to pay us our bonus pay early so we can get through these tough times for the Great Depression?
The March on Washington. In 1932, the veterans organized a march on Washington to demand the early payment of their bonus pay. Around 15,000 veterans converged on the Capitol. They came from all over the country. They asked that the Congress consider a bill that would pay them their bonus pay early.
All right, so setting up camp. These veterans, they set up a camp near the U.S. Capitol. They built huts out of cardboard, scrap wood, and tar paper. We've talked about this. They built basically Hooverville, a Hooverville. All right, it was organized only veterans and their families were allowed in the camp. And they required campers did not cause trouble, and their plan was to stay until they got their pay.
Setting up camp. The veterans set up a camp near the U.S. Capitol. They built huts out of cardboard, scrap wood, and tar paper. The camp was organized, and only veterans and their families were allowed in the camp. The organizers required that campers did not cause any trouble. Their plan was to stay until they got their pay.
All right. So the bonus bill was introduced to Congress to pay these veterans early. Many Congress wanted to do this, but others felt, hey, these additional taxes, it's going to slow the recovery of the economy, and depression is going to last even longer if we give these people their pay early. President Hoover didn't want the bill to pass. He said the government would not be intimidated by these marchers, and the bonus bill was passed in the House of Representatives, but it was voted down by the Senate. You have to have both of them do it. Two-thirds of it has to do it in order for it to pass a new law or a new bill. So So after it was rejected, some of the veterans were discouraged and about 5,000 of them left, but the rest decided to stay in the camp and see what else would happen.
Congress denies pay. The bonus bill was introduced to Congress to pay the veterans early. Many members of Congress wanted to pass the bill, but others felt that the additional taxes would slow the recovery and cause the Depression to last longer. President Hoover didn't want the bill to pass. He said the government would not be intimidated by the marchers. The bonus bill was passed in the House of Representatives, but was voted down by the Senate. The veterans were discouraged. Around 5,000 left, but the rest decided to stay in the camp.
All right, so afraid these veterans were going to riot, President Hoover, he ordered the rest of the veterans to leave, but then they didn't leave. So he called in the army that was led by this man right here, Douglas MacArthur. So the army marched towards the camp. The veterans cheered them on because they thought they were there to honor them, but they were wrong. The army entered the camp. They began to destroy these huts that they had made. They used tear gas. They used bayonets to get the veterans to move. All right. They did all these different things. Several of the veterans, including their wives and children, were injured in this clash.
Hoover brings in the army. Afraid that the veterans would riot, President Hoover ordered the remaining veterans to leave. When they didn't leave, he called in the army. The army was led by General Douglas MacArthur. As the army marched toward the camp, the veterans cheered them on. They thought that the army was marching to honor the veterans. They were wrong. The army entered the camp and began to destroy the huts. They used tear gas and bayonets to get the veterans to move. Several veterans, including their wives and children, were injured in the clash.
All right. So the plight of the bonus army was certainly, it was a dark moment in the history of the United States. It was a very dark moment. And it marked the low point of President Hoover's administration. And he lost the election later that year of Franklin D. Roosevelt. And it really didn't help him any because it swayed. They already didn't like Hoover, public opinion, and it swayed it even further after that. So to where they were against him and they wanted somebody else in the office.
Legacy and aftermath. The plight of the bonus army was certainly a dark moment in the history of the United States. It marked the low point of President Hoover's administration. He lost the election later that year to Franklin D. Roosevelt. No doubt his actions against the bonus army did not help his campaign.
All right. Comprehension questions. Number one, the bonus army marchers were veterans from what war? A, the Spanish-American War, B, World War I, or C, the Civil War? It is B, World War I. They were veterans of World War I that wanted their bonus pay.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number two, what city did the bonus army march to? A, Washington, D.C., B, New York, or C, Baltimore? They marched to A, Washington, D.C., which is where the Capitol building was.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number three, who was president during the march of the bonus army? Was it A, Franklin Roosevelt, B, Herbert Hoover, or C, Woodrow Wilson? It was B, Herbert Hoover. He was president during this time. Now, he lost the election later that year to Franklin D. Roosevelt, but Herbert Hoover was president at the time.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number four. Well, I don't even have the question up here. I don't know why I don't have the question. All right, so we'll skip that one. All right, number five. What famous World War I general led the army against the veterans in the bonus army camp? Was it C, George Patton, B, Dwight Howard, or Dwight Eisenhower, or A, Douglas MacArthur? It was A, Douglas MacArthur, who led this. They threw tear gas out on bayonets.
We have a winner.
Hurt a few people. And our last one, who led the bonus army marchers? A, no one, B, Walter Waters, or C, George Patton? It was B, Walter Waters. That was on our first page. He was the leader of the bonus army marchers.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
All right, class, that is all for today. I will see you back next time. We will talk about Franklin D. Roosevelt. You all have a very good day.